Emmanuel Acho, talking about Todd Monken and Shedeur Sanders and the Browns quarterback position.
If you are Todd Monken, you can't afford for your sole coaching opportunity probably in your life. You're 59 years old and you only got this job because you wrote an essay. You can't afford for your sole coaching opportunity to be tethered to whether or not Shedeur will take the next step or not. If you are the Cleveland Browns, either free agency, either the draft, I do believe you have to make a move to find some competition because competition breeds excellence. So even if it's not competition to supplant Shedeur, at least go get some competition to make sure that Shedeur is challenged. Make sure that you're going to get the best out of Shedeur.
That's absolutely fair. I think I'd take it a step further. Andrew Berry has to listen to Todd Monken if he says, I can win with this quarterback, be it a veteran, be it a draft guy, be it Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson. He has to lean on Monken for, hey, I can win with this guy at quarterback, doesn't he? Isn't that why you hired the guy?
Yeah, I mean, my assumption right now is that Shedeur Sanders is still not the starting quarterback. He won himself a backup job last year. I assume that the real starting quarterback in Cleveland is not on the roster right now. You know, it's either a veteran that they're going to be in the market for at some point this offseason, or maybe the draft. Unfortunately, I think this draft did not materialize the way they would have wanted it to in terms of the number of quarterback options available when they traded into, you know, another first-round pick in this draft. At that time, the draft looked great. And this is the trouble with projecting a year in advance and saying, well, next year's draft looks fantastic. Sometimes it doesn't pan out that way, and all these guys go back to college, or, you know, they don't have good years and they're just not the players that they look like they were going to be. All of a sudden, it looks like there might be one quarterback at the top of this draft in Mendoza, and then maybe nobody else that you're comfortable taking, forget the first round, but comfortable as a starting quarterback, kind of similar to the way it was a year ago. So they might not have the option to go get the guy in the first round this year, but maybe they'll try and do the same thing again and kind of tread water for a year and go get the quarterback in next year's draft when, again, theoretically, it's supposed to be stronger. But I would find it a real stretch unless Shedeur Sanders, you know, is this incredible character behind the scenes, and, you know, that the locker room is 100% bought into him already. And it would seem tough to project that. But unless that's the case, I don't think you can possibly have seen enough in the starts that he had last year to be 100% confident that he's the guy going into this year.
Is there somebody that you think makes sense veteran-wise? I mean, we've heard the names, Malik Willis, there's Tua, there's Kyler Murray, there's some Anthony Richardson. There's some talk now that the Texans would be listening to C.J. Stroud. I know he didn't play well in the playoffs a couple of years in a row, but I'd find that one hard to believe. Is there a veteran that makes sense?
Malik Willis is the guy that I'd be really intrigued by this offseason. I mean, he's had such an interesting career already. It is another one of these kind of redemption stories in today's NFL. And that's why, you know, somebody like Anthony Richardson is an interesting quarterback, but I wouldn't want to be starting him in 2026. I think he's another guy that could potentially be redeemed down the line somewhere. But Malik Willis, when he first started in Tennessee, looked like he didn't belong in the NFL, didn't belong in this league at all. He was a one-read and run quarterback, to the point when, you know, Mike Vrabel was benching him in preseason games because he wasn't, you know, working through a progression. He was one read and then he was going to run. And Vrabel was like, look, I don't want you doing that. I know you can run. I want you working on the stuff you're not good at. He looked completely non-viable. And then Matt LaFleur brings him over to Green Bay, trades for him, surprisingly. And basically since that point, he's looked like a different player. He can now work through progressions. He can read a defense. He's still got the athleticism, still got the arm. And in really small sample sizes, he's looked pretty spectacular for the Packers when they've needed him to start when Jordan Love has been injured. So what the contract looks like, I think, is the big X factor there, and how much money he wants, how much guaranteed money you're going to need to give him. But if you were just going to roll the dice on, you know, a quarterback in abstract terms who could be a really good player for the next, you know, 4 or 5 years, Malik Willis would be the guy I'm really interested in.
Yeah, the flip side of it is, you know, he went to Liberty, so the transition to the NFL shouldn't have really been that big of a surprise, just given where he played his college football at.
Yeah, and he was always seen as something of a raw prospect, and that's always part of the equation here. But that's kind of the problem with some of these young quarterbacks is you don't get given the time in the NFL. Like they take a look at you, and if it looks like you're so far away from where you need to be, most teams are just cutting bait at that point, or you're consigned to being a backup, and then you're basically at the mercy of when the starter gets hurt. See, Matt LaFleur saw something in him. Maybe it was just from him as a prospect as opposed to what he'd shown in Tennessee. But LaFleur liked him, brought him over, and really has rescued his career from that point.
Yeah, and you know what? Good for him. Let's see if he gets another chance and where that might be.